The phone rings at 3 in the morning, and I already know it's bad news. No one calls at this hour to share their joy. "Grandma?" Emma's voice cracks through the speaker. "I need you." My heart pounds against my ribs as I sit up in bed. Liam stirs beside me, his hand reaching for mine in the darkness. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I'm pregnant." 2 words. Just 2 simple words, and suddenly I'm back in that sterile hospital room, watching my daughter Olivia slip away while a newborn Emma wailed in the nursery. The memory hits me like a physical blow, stealing my breath. "Where are you?" I managed to ask, already swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "At home. He's not here. He stormed out when I told him." Of course he did. That worthless boy, always chasing his dreams of becoming the next big DJ sensation, leaving my granddaughter to deal with this alone. I'm Sierra Thompson, and I've spent the last 18 years raising Emma after losing my only daughter. I won't let history repeat itself. "Stay where you are. We're coming over." Liam's already dressed by the time I hang up. He knows. He always knows. "That punk Ryan better pray I don't find him first," he mutters, grabbing his car keys. The drive to Emma's apartment is silent, heavy with unspoken fears. We find her curled up on her couch, looking so young and vulnerable it makes my chest ache. Her mascara has left dark trails down her cheeks, and she's clutching her phone like a lifeline. "He said he's not ready," she whispers as I pull her into my arms. "Said his career is just taking off, that a baby would ruin everything." Liam's jaw tightens. "That boy works for me now. He'd better start thinking about his responsibilities." "Daddy offered him that job 3 months ago," Emma explains to me, hiccuping through her tears. "Ryan's been showing up late, leaving early, says the construction work is just temporary until he gets his big break." I stroke her hair, but my mind is already racing ahead, plotting and planning. "We'll figure this out, baby girl. You're not alone." "I'm scared," she admits, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. What if something happens like with Mom?" The question hangs in the air like poison. Liam turns away, but not before I catch the shimmer in his eyes. "We've never fully recovered from losing Olivia. How could we?" "Nothing's going to happen to you," I say firmly, even as my own fear threatens to choke me. "We're here. We'll take care of everything." My phone buzzes, a text from Jenna Carter, Ryan's mother. "Just heard from Ryan. He's at some club downtown. I'm so sorry, Sierra. I don't know what's wrong with that boy anymore." I show the message to Liam, watching his expression darken. He owns Thompson Builders, the largest construction company in town. One word from him, and Ryan's future in this city could vanish like morning dew. "Let me handle Ryan," Liam says quietly. "I'll make sure he understands what's at stake." But I'm already forming my own plans. Ryan Carter thinks he can abandon my granddaughter, leave her to face this alone. He has no idea what I'm capable of. I made a promise over Olivia's grave to protect Emma, and I intend to keep it, no matter the cost. Emma finally drifts off to sleep on the couch, exhausted from crying. As I cover her with a blanket, my phone lights up again. Another text from Jenna. "Ryan's booking a flight to Miami. Says there's some big music festival he can't miss." I look at my sleeping granddaughter, so much like her mother it hurts, and feel something cold and hard settle in my chest. Ryan Carter is about to learn that some decisions have consequences that last a lifetime. A week passes, and Emma moves back home with us. I watch her unpacking her things, fitting her life back into her childhood bedroom, and my anger toward Ryan grows with each passing hour. "He's coming over today," Emma announces at breakfast, pushing her untouched toast around her plate. "Says he wants to talk about everything." Liam's coffee cup hits the saucer with a sharp crack. About time that boy showed his face. "Please don't start, Grandpa," Emma pleads. "He's trying." I bite my tongue until I taste copper. Trying? Running off to Miami for a week while your pregnant girlfriend cries herself to sleep isn't trying. But I promised Emma I'd give him a chance, so I force a smile and clear the dishes. The doorbell rings at noon. Ryan stands on our porch in a designer t-shirt that probably cost more than a week's salary at Thompson Builders. His eyes are bloodshot and there's glitter still stuck to his neck from whatever club he crawled out of. "Mrs. Thompson," he nods, trying to slide past me. I plant myself firmly in the doorway. "Emma's resting. You can talk to her in the living room." Liam's already there, sitting in his armchair like a judge presiding over court. Ryan's confidence wavers as he takes a seat on the edge of the couch. "Emma," I call upstairs. "Ryan's here." She comes down slowly, one hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. The sight makes Ryan shift uncomfortably. "Baby, I've been thinking," he starts, and I have to grip the back of Liam's chair to keep from interrupting. "This timing, it's not great. I've got this huge opportunity coming up. This producer in Miami wants to sign me for a residency at his club." Emma's face crumples. "What about the job at Thompson Builders?" "That was temporary, you knew that. This is my real chance, Emma. I could make it big." "And the baby?" Liam's voice cuts through the room like a blade. "Is that temporary too?" Ryan runs his hands through his styled hair. "Look, I'll send money when I can, but I can't be tied down right now. My career—" "Your career?" I step forward and Ryan actually flinches. "You mean playing other people's music in dark rooms while drunk college kids dance? That's more important than your child?" "Grandma, please," Emma whispers, "but I'm beyond stopping now." "You want to know what a real career looks like?" I gesture to Liam. 30 years building a company from nothing, supporting his family, being there when— My voice catches, memories of Olivia threatening to overwhelm me. Ryan stands up, defensive. "I'm not trying to be like Mr. Thompson. This is different. Emma, you understand, right? We're young. We've got our whole lives ahead of us." "No," Emma says quietly, and we all turn to look at her. "I don't understand. This baby is coming, whether you're ready or not. I thought you loved me enough to at least try." "I do love you. That's why I'm being honest instead of making promises I can't keep." A bitter laugh escapes me. "Honest? Was it honest when you told Liam you'd take the job seriously? When you promised Emma you'd always be there for her?" Ryan's face darkens. "With all due respect, Mrs. Thompson, this is between me and Emma." "Nothing about my granddaughter is just between you and her," I snap. "Not anymore. Not after what happened to her mother." "Sierra," Liam warns, but the words are already out. Emma stands up suddenly. "I can't do this right now. I need some air." She rushes out the back door and Ryan moves to follow her. Liam rises from his chair, blocking his path. "Sit down, son. We need to have a serious discussion about your future at Thompson Builders." I leave them there, following Emma into the garden. She's standing by Olivia's rose bushes, tears streaming down her face. "I really thought he'd change," she whispers as I approach. "I thought when he came back, he'd realize what matters." I wrap my arms around her, feeling her shoulders shake with silent sobs. Through the window, I can see Ryan gesturing angrily at Liam, his face red with indignation. Something cold and calculated settles in my chest as I watch him. "Don't worry, sweetheart," I murmur into Emma's hair. "Everything's going to work out exactly the way it should. And I know exactly how to make that happen." The neon sign of the underground pulses against the night sky as I sit in my car, watching. 3 hours I've been here, waiting for proof of what Jenna Carter told me this morning. "He's supposed to be at work," she'd said, voice cracking. "But I found these flyers in his room. He's been doing secret DJ sets when he should be at the construction site." The side door opens, and there he is. Ryan Carter, who should be handling inventory at Thompson Builders, is instead loading equipment into a beaten-up van. My fingers tighten around my phone, already recording. The timestamp will be perfect evidence for Liam. A girl in a crop top follows him out, laughing as she hands him something that glints in the streetlight. Cash. My jaw clenches so hard it hurts. Emma's at home right now, suffering through morning sickness that lasts all day, while this worthless boy plays his games and collects under-the-table money. I step out of my car, heels clicking against the pavement. Ryan freezes when he spots me, guilt flashing across his face before it hardens into defiance. "Mrs. Thompson," he says, trying to sound casual, "what brings you here?" "Funny. I was about to ask you the same thing." Liam's been wondering why the inventory counts keep coming up short. The girl looks between us, sensing tension. I should go, she mumbles, retreating inside. You following me now? Ryan's voice has an edge. That's kind of crazy, don't you think? Crazy as lying to your pregnant girlfriend while you chase pipe dreams in dirty clubs. I hold up my phone. Should we show Emma this video? Or should we start with Liam? His face darkens. You don't understand. This gig paid more than I make in 2 weeks at Thompson Builders. I'm doing this for Emma, for the baby. By stealing time from your job? By lying? I'm not stealing anything. I'm building my future. The club owner wants me to open for some big names next month. This could be my break. I laugh, and it sounds bitter even to my ears. Your break? While Emma can barely keep food down? While she cries herself to sleep wondering if you'll ever grow up? Don't pretend you know what's best for Emma, he snarls, stepping closer. You're so caught up in your grief over her mother that you can't see you're suffocating her. Emma understands my dreams. She supports me. The mention of Olivia hits like a physical blow. You don't get to speak about my daughter. You don't get to use her name while you're out here destroying everything we've built for Emma. Built for her or built to control her? His words drip with venom. Maybe if you hadn't kept her so sheltered, she'd understand there's more to life than following your rules. Something snaps inside me. Rules? You think protecting her is about rules? My daughter died bringing Emma into this world, and I promised her... My voice breaks, but anger pushes me forward. I promised her Emma would have a good life, a safe life, not this mess you're creating. The only mess here is you, Mrs. Thompson, living in the past, trying to control everyone because you couldn't control what happened to Olivia. The sound of my palm striking his face echoes in the empty parking lot. We both stand there, shocked by the sudden violence. You have one chance, I say, my voice deadly quiet. One chance to make this right. Come clean to Liam tomorrow, apologize to Emma, and commit to your responsibilities. Or I'll make sure you never work in this town again, in construction or clubs. Ryan rubs his cheek, eyes burning with hatred. You know what? Do your worst. Emma will see you for what you really are, a bitter old woman who can't let go. And when she does, you'll lose her too. He climbs into his van and peels out of the parking lot, leaving me standing there with my hand still stinging. My phone buzzes, a text from Emma. Where are you? Ryan's not answering his phone and I'm not feeling well. I look at the club's neon sign, then at the video I've recorded. Ryan thinks I'm bluffing about destroying his chances in this town. He has no idea what I'm capable of, what lengths I'll go to protect my family. On my way home, sweetheart, I text back. Then I make another call. Jenna, we need to talk about your son, and this time we're going to do more than just worry. Jenna Carter's kitchen smells like burnt coffee and regret. She hasn't stopped crying since I showed her the video of Ryan at the underground, mascara creating dark rivers down her weathered face. I found these too, she says, sliding a stack of papers across the table. Credit card statements all maxed out in Ryan's name. He used my address to apply for them. I had no idea until the collection calls started. My hands shake as I flip through the charges. Airline tickets, DJ equipment, hotel rooms, thousands of dollars of debt, all while he's been telling Emma he's saving for their future. There's more, Jenna whispers, and something in her voice makes me look up. The producer in Miami, he's not real. Ryan's been lying about everything. He paid some guy to pose as a talent scout at his shows. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. Does Emma know? Ryan swore me to secrecy, said he just needed time to make it big, then he'd pay everything back. Jenna's laugh is hollow. I wanted to believe him. Every mother wants to believe in their child. I think of Olivia, of all the dreams I had for her that died in that hospital room. Sometimes believing isn't enough. My phone buzzes, a text from Emma. Grandma, please come home. Something's wrong. Fear grips my chest as I stand, already reaching for my keys. I have to go. Sierra? Jenna catches my arm, her eyes desperate. Whatever you're planning, remember Ryan's still my son. I meet her gaze. And Emma's still my granddaughter. I find Emma curled up on the bathroom floor, pale and shaking. The sight sends me straight back to Olivia's final days, and for a moment I can't breathe. The doctor said it's just severe morning sickness, Emma manages between heaving breaths. But Ryan won't answer his phone. I needed him, and he won't answer. I help her to bed, rage building with every whimper of pain. Once she's settled, I check her phone. Dozens of unanswered messages to Ryan, while his social media shows him setting up for another club night. Liam appears in the doorway, his face grim. Just got a call from the site manager. Ryan hasn't shown up for work in 3 days. I know where he is, I say, showing him the social media posts. And I know what he's been hiding. We step into the hallway and I tell him everything. The credit cards, the fake producer, the lies. With each revelation, Liam's expression darkens. I'll fire him first thing tomorrow, he growls. No, I say, surprising myself. Not yet. I have a better idea. Sierra? There's a warning in his voice. He knows me too well. Trust me, I whisper, just as Emma calls out from her room. We find her sitting up in bed, staring at her phone in disbelief. Ryan just posted that he's quitting Thompson Builders. Says he's moving to Miami next week to start his music career. Her voice cracks. He didn't even tell me. I sit beside her, taking her trembling hands in mine. There's something you need to know about Miami, sweetheart. But before I can continue, Emma's phone lights up with a call from Ryan. She answers on speaker, her voice small and hurt. Were you going to tell me? Baby, this is my chance. His words slur slightly. He's been drinking. Come with me. We can start fresh, away from your grandparents' control. I feel Emma stiffen beside me. What about the baby? We can figure that out later. This producer, he's offering me everything I've dreamed of. There is no producer, I say loudly, unable to stay silent. Tell her the truth, Ryan. Tell her about the credit cards, the lies. The line goes quiet for a long moment. Then Ryan laughs, a cold sound I've never heard from him before. You just couldn't help yourself, could you, Mrs. Thompson? Had to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Ryan, Emma's voice trembles. What is she talking about? Ask your grandmother about control, he spits. Ask her why she really keeps you so close. It's not about protecting you. It's about replacing your mother. The words hang in the air like poison. Emma looks at me, questions and accusations warring in her eyes, and I realize this fight for her future just became much more complicated than I imagined. The contractions start at midnight. I'm awakened by Emma's scream, a sound that tears through 18 years of carefully constructed walls and drops me right back into that hospital room with Olivia. Something's wrong, Emma gasps when I reach her bedroom. It's too early. My hands shake as I help her to the car. Liam's already calling ahead to the hospital, his voice steady but his face ashen. We've been here before. We know how this story can end. Call Ryan, Emma pleads between contractions. Please, Grandma. He needs to know. I grip the steering wheel harder, remembering the social media post from earlier. Ryan's latest update showed him at some music festival in Miami, his arms around 2 girls in bikinis. The timestamp was just 3 hours ago. But I make the call anyway because Emma's asking, because she's scared, because she's so much like her mother, it hurts. Voicemail. Of course. Ryan, Emma's in labor. She needs you. Get on the next flight home. I pause, swallowing my pride. Please. The emergency room is a blur of activity. Emma's blood pressure is too high, the baby's heartbeat too low. Everything's happening too fast, just like before. Mrs. Thompson? A nurse touches my arm. We need your granddaughter's medical history. And the father's? I'm handling it, I snap, but my hands won't stop shaking as I fill out the forms. Every beep of the monitors sends another crack through my composure. My phone buzzes. A text from Ryan. Can't leave now. Biggest show of my career tonight. Tell Emma I'm sorry. The phone crashes against the wall before I realize I've thrown it. A nurse jumps, startled, but I'm already moving, pushing through the doors to Emma's room where she's crying, asking for Ryan. He's not coming, is he? She reads it on my face. He's really not coming. Emma, sweetheart. Don't. She turns away, tears mixing with sweat. You were right about him. You were right about everything. The monitors start screaming. Doctors rush in, shouting terms that sound too familiar. Preeclampsia, emergency C-section, the same words they used with Olivia. No, I whisper, but they're already wheeling Emma away. No, not again. Please, not again. Liam catches me as my knees buckle. This time is different, he says firmly. Emma is stronger. We know what to watch for. My phone lies shattered on the floor, but Liam's still works. I grab it, dialing Jenna's number. Where is he? I demand when she answers. Where exactly is your son? Sierra, please. Your son is about to lose everything. His girlfriend, his child, maybe both. Just like I lost Olivia. Tell me where he is. There's a long pause. The Ultra Music Festival. He's opening for some DJ at midnight. I check the time, 11:45 p.m. What stage? Sierra, what are you planning? The same thing you should have done years ago. I'm going to make him face reality. I hang up and turn to Liam. Stay with Emma. I need to make some calls. Sierra, I promised Olivia I'd protect her daughter. I failed her once by letting that boy into Emma's life. I won't fail her again. I step into the hallway, pulling up contacts I haven't used in years. Old friends who owe favors. People who know people. One call to the festival's security chief, who still remembers when I helped his daughter years ago. Another to a local news station that loves scandal. A final call to the Miami police about those credit card fraud charges Jenna discovered. By midnight, Ryan Carter's big break will become his biggest nightmare. But as I hit dial on the first number, Emma's monitor alarms start blaring again, and a doctor rushes past me shouting orders. For a moment, I freeze. Is this revenge worth the cost? Am I doing this for Emma, for Olivia, or for myself? Then I hear Emma cry out for her mother, and my resolve hardens. Some choices can't be undone, but some consequences can't be avoided either. I press send, and the wheels of destruction begin to turn. The surgery takes 6 hours. I pace the waiting room like a caged animal, watching Miami news feeds on my phone as Ryan's world implodes in real time. Security footage of him being escorted off stage. Police waiting in the wings. His face splashed across local news as credit card fraud charges break. It should feel like victory. Instead, all I can think about is Emma's last conscious words before they wheeled her into surgery. Mom, I'm scared. She wasn't calling for me. She was calling for Olivia. Sierra! Liam's voice cuts through my thoughts. He's standing in the doorway, his face unreadable. Emma's out of surgery. The baby? His silence tells me everything. The NICU is too quiet, too sterile. Emma's daughter, my great-granddaughter, lies in an incubator, smaller than any baby should be. Tubes and wires make her look like a science experiment rather than a newborn. 20% chance, the doctor had said. The next 48 hours are critical. My phone buzzes, a text from Jenna. They're holding Ryan without bail. What have you done? What have I done? I look at this tiny baby fighting for life, at Emma unconscious in recovery, and suddenly my carefully orchestrated revenge feels hollow. Mrs. Thompson? A nurse appears with paperwork. We need the baby's name for the birth certificate. Her mother's not awake to... Given the circumstances, we need it now, for the records. I stare at the form, pen hovering over the blank space. In my mind, I hear Emma calling for her mother, see Olivia's face the day she told me she was pregnant, feel the weight of 18 years of guilt and grief and rage. The nurse clears her throat. Mrs. Thompson? Olivia, I write, then immediately scratch it out. My hand shakes as I realize what I've almost done. I'm doing exactly what Ryan accused me of, trying to replace one loss with another. I can't, I tell the nurse, pushing the form away. We have to wait for her mother. My phone rings. It's the Miami police detective wanting a statement about the credit card fraud. I send it to voicemail. Another call. The local news station, hungry for more details about the disgraced young DJ whose girlfriend is fighting for life while he sits in jail. You should eat something, Liam says, appearing beside me. You've been here 12 hours. I can't leave them. Sierra. He takes my hand, forces me to look at him. This isn't Olivia. What happened then? It's not happening again. Isn't it? Emma's unconscious? The baby might not make it? And I'm standing here just as useless as I was 18 years ago. You're not useless. I'm what? A vengeful old woman who sent her granddaughter's boyfriend to jail while she was in surgery? Who almost named her great-granddaughter after her dead mother because I can't let go? The monitors on the baby's incubator start beeping. Medical staff rush in, and we're pushed aside, forced to watch through glass as they work to keep this tiny life from slipping away. My phone buzzes again. A text from an unknown number. Ryan using his one phone call. I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed everything. And suddenly I realize he's right. In my quest for revenge, in my desperate need to protect Emma from suffering Olivia's fate, I've become exactly what I feared. Someone who hurts others to avoid their own pain. The beeping stabilizes. The baby lives for now. But as I watch her tiny chest rise and fall, I understand that this was never about protecting Emma or honoring Olivia's memory. It was about me, trying to control what I couldn't bear to lose again. I need to fix this, I whisper. How? Liam asks. Before I can answer, a nurse rushes out of Emma's room. She's waking up, she says, and she's asking for Ryan. The weight of what I've done crashes over me like a wave. I've spent so much time fighting to prevent history from repeating itself that I never stopped to consider I might be the one making the same mistakes, just in a different way. Now I have to face Emma and tell her what I've done, and this time there's no one to blame but myself. The Miami-Dade Detention Center smells like industrial cleaner and despair. I sit across from Ryan, separated by scratched plexiglass, and for the first time, I see him clearly. Not as the villain I've made him out to be, but as someone's child, barely older than Emma. Your daughter's fighting for her life, I say into the phone receiver, while you're in here because of what I did. He leans forward, eyes bloodshot. Finally admitting it? That you set me up? I made the calls, yes. But you set yourself up, Ryan. The credit card fraud, the lies about the producer. I did what I had to do to chase my dreams. At least I'm honest about who I am. He presses his palm against the glass. What's your excuse? Before I can answer, a guard approaches with paperwork. Carter, your bail's been posted. We both stare in surprise. Through the visiting room window, I see Liam talking to a clerk. Why? Ryan asks, suspicious. Because Emma needs to see you, and you need to see your daughter. The drive back to the hospital is tense. Ryan sits in the back seat, still wearing his festival wristbands. I catch his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looks terrified. She's small, I warn him, smaller than you're expecting, and there are lots of tubes. I can't do this, he blurts out. I'm not ready to be someone's father. Liam pulls the car over so suddenly we all lurch forward. Neither was I, he says, turning to face Ryan. When Olivia told us she was pregnant with Emma, I was terrified. But you know what? Being ready doesn't matter. Being there does. The NICU is quiet when we arrive. Emma's awake, sitting in a wheelchair beside the incubator. She doesn't look up when we enter. Emma, Ryan starts, but she cuts him off. Don't. Her voice is raw. I don't want your excuses. I want you to look at her. Really look at her. Ryan steps closer to the incubator, and I see the moment it hits him, the reality of this tiny life he helped create. His hands shake as he reaches toward the glass. She needs a name, Emma says quietly. I've been waiting, hoping you'd want to be part of that decision. The silence stretches. Ryan presses his forehead against the incubator, shoulders shaking. When he finally turns around, there are tears on his face. I can't give her what she needs, he whispers. I can't give either of you what you need. I thought I could fake it until things worked out, but seeing her like this... Ryan. No, Emma, listen. Your grandmother was right about me. I'm not ready for this life, and pretending I am would only hurt you both more. I step forward, guilt crushing my chest. Ryan, I was wrong too. What I did was protect your family, he finishes. I get it now. I really do. He turns back to Emma. Name her whatever you want. She deserves better than what I can give her. Emma's face crumples, but there's relief mixed with the pain. I think I've always known, she admits. I just needed you to say it. Ryan nods, then pulls something from his pocket, his hospital ID bracelet from when he was born. Maybe give this to her? So she knows I existed, that I saw her, even if I couldn't stay. He walks out without looking back. Through the window, we watch him hand his visitor's badge to the nurse, shoulders straight, but head down. I'm sorry, I tell Emma, though the words feel inadequate. I thought I was protecting you, but I just made everything worse. No, Emma says, surprising me. You forced us all to face the truth, even if your methods were extreme. A ghost of a smile crosses her face. You're just like Mom that way. The baby stirs in her incubator, tiny fingers flexing. Emma reaches through the port to touch her daughter's hand. Hope, she says suddenly. Her name is Hope Thompson, because that's what she gave me. Hope that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I look at my granddaughter, seeing not just echoes of Olivia now, but something entirely new and resilient. And I realize that sometimes protecting someone means letting them find their own way through the pain. Hope comes home on a quiet Tuesday morning. The doctors call it a miracle. I call it Thompson's stubbornness. She's tiny but fierce, just like her mother, just like Olivia. Emma insists on carrying her through the front door herself, though her C-section scar still pulls when she walks. I hover behind her, hands ready to catch them both, until she gives me a look so much like Olivia's that I have to step back. I've got this, Grandma, she says softly. You don't have to carry everything anymore. The nursery we've prepared isn't the one Emma and Ryan painted together months ago. That room, with its half-finished music note border, remains closed. Instead, we've converted my sewing room, the one where I used to sit and stare at Olivia's old photos when the grief felt too heavy. As Emma settles Hope into her crib, the doorbell rings. Through the window, I see Jenna Carter standing on our porch, clutching a small package. I won't stay, she says when I open the door. Ryan asked me to bring this before he leaves for California. The package contains a USB drive and a handwritten letter. My hands shake as I read it. What is it? Emma asks, appearing behind me. His first real song, I say, scanning the letter. He wrote it for Hope. Says he wants her to know he chose to leave because staying halfway wasn't enough for any of you. Emma takes the USB drive, turning it over in her hands. Did we do the right thing, letting him go? Before I can answer, Hope's cry echoes through the baby monitor. Emma straightens, instinct already kicking in. Would you mind, she asks Jenna, coming up to meet your granddaughter? Jenna's eyes fill with tears. I didn't think, after everything? She should know all her family, Emma says firmly, even the complicated parts. I watch them climb the stairs together, these two women bound by circumstance and choice, and realize something about protection I never understood before. Sometimes it means stepping back, letting others forge their own connections, even if they're different from what you imagined. Later that night, I find Emma in Olivia's old room, Hope asleep against her chest while Ryan's song plays softly from her phone. It's surprisingly good, a gentle melody about choices and consequences, about loving something enough to let it go. Mom would have handled this better, Emma whispers, tracing Hope's tiny features. She wouldn't have tried to control everything like we did. No, I admit, sitting beside them. She would have trusted love to find its own way. Even when it hurt, even when it meant watching people make mistakes. Is that why you kept her hospital bracelet? The one she wore when she had me? I freeze. I've never told anyone about the bracelet tucked away in my jewelry box, saved from the day we lost Olivia and gained Emma. How did you... Found it years ago, Emma says. That's why I kept Ryan's. Not for Hope, really. For me. To remember that sometimes loving someone means accepting when they can't stay. Hope stirs, her tiny hand wrapping around Emma's finger. In the soft lamplight, I see 3 generations of Thompson women reflected in their faces. Olivia's strength, Emma's resilience, Hope's future stretching out before her. I've been thinking, Emma says suddenly, about taking some college classes. Online at first, while hopes small. Maybe business courses. Business? She nods. Thompson Builders will need new leadership someday, and I want Hope to see that her mother built something too, even if her father had to leave to find his path. I think about revenge then, about how I thought destroying Ryan would somehow protect Emma from pain. But here she sits, stronger for having faced that pain herself, making choices I never would have imagined. Your mother would be so proud, I whisper, but Emma shakes her head. She'd be proud of all of us, she corrects me, for learning to love without trying to control the outcome. Hope sighs in her sleep, and Ryan's song fades to silence. Outside, the world continues turning, full of possibilities we can't predict or protect against. But in this moment, watching my granddaughter hold her daughter, I finally understand what Olivia tried to teach me. True protection isn't about preventing pain. It's about being there to witness the healing.
Hey, long time no see. You've really turned into an old lady, huh?
We are divorced, you know. You could at least try to be a bit more considerate in the way you talk.
We used to be married, so I thought there's no need to hold back speaking in a casual way like that. Since our divorce, what have you been up to? Right after we split, I got married, you know. And right after getting married, I found out my wife was pregnant. Turns out she was already pregnant when we divorced. If you're not infertile, kids come easy. Now I'm living happily with my wife and son.
That's nice. I'm glad you're happy.
What about you? Oops, my bad. Infertile and forever alone, huh? Over 30 and you're unable to have kids, which means no one's going to want you, right?
I divorced my ex-husband 15 years ago because of infertility. At a reunion, I bumped into my ex-husband who boasted about his family and tried to look better than me. However, it seems he's making a big mistake. Huh? Who are you talking about? I'll correct his misunderstanding now. I'm sure it will leave him feeling frustrated. Also, while telling him the truth, I'll throw in a little extra details. Out of mischief, I told my ex-husband something I didn't need to say. That comment far exceeded my expectations and drove him to madness. I am Alyssa. I work at a consulting firm and I'm 28. I plan to get married soon and will be introducing him to my parents shortly. My husband-to-be, John, is 28 and works as a salesperson for a major manufacturer. We've been friends since kindergarten through middle school. We went to different high schools and moved away from our hometown after graduating from college. A few years after starting our jobs, we discovered through social media that our workplaces were close, and we met up for the first time since middle school. Meeting an old friend from our hometown as adults felt like a typical romantic scenario, and we started dating, eventually leading to our engagement.
Do you think it'll be okay? I mean, won't your dad hate me?
Don't worry so much.
But your dad is a CEO, right? When we were kids, I didn't really think about that, but now that I'm a working adult, it's natural to feel nervous, right?
My husband kept adjusting his straight tie and wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. It made me feel nervous too. True, my dad runs a metal processing company, but it's a small business in a rural area. The company used to be quite large, but it has significantly downsized. Moreover, my dad isn't exactly a commanding presence.
If you're okay with having my daughter as your wife, take her as much as you want. But remember, no returns.
My husband's intention disappeared within a minute thanks to my dad's easygoing nature.
I wouldn't do that even if you asked me to.
By the end of the visit, even my husband was joking around. My mom and I exchanged looks, feeling relieved. I thought that everything went well, but on the way home, my husband seemed a bit concerned.
Today, hearing about the factory and the company, seems your dad's business isn't doing too well, is it?
It's not as good as it used to be. Well, that's just how times change.
Aren't you a management consultant? Can't you do something?
Do you have any idea how hard it is to turn a company around? I'm working a job and I can't just help out with my dad's business on the side. If I were to do it, I'd have to quit my current job and join my dad's company full time.
I see. Being an only child, I guess you plan to quit your job someday and take over and revitalize that company.
That's not going to happen. My dad doesn't want me to suffer by taking over the business. He plans to sell the company in the future. So until my dad retires, I'm just giving him simple advice to keep the company going.
Okay, that makes sense.
Knowing there's no need to worry about my dad's company, my husband's expression softened. I was pleased that he cared about my dad, and my expression softened too. Half a year later, we got married.
I'm going to have some coffee. Do you want your usual tea?
Yes, thank you. As I was cleaning the dinner dishes, my husband made my tea. He even timed it so the tea wouldn't cool down while I finished. Being a salesperson, my husband is very considerate. He often anticipates what I want without me having to say anything. With such a considerate husband, there's no reason for me to be dissatisfied, and our married life is going smoothly. However, 2 years into our marriage, I wasn't dissatisfied with our married life, but I started to feel a bit anxious. Our relationship was good, and our intimate life was reasonably frequent, but 2 years into our marriage, we still hadn't been blessed with a child.
There's no need to rush. It'll happen eventually.
But I'm already 30. I'm a little anxious. While lounging on the living room sofa and playing with his phone, my husband responded lightly to my concerns. Normally, I might get angry that he wasn't taking the conversation more seriously. However, I knew he was trying to ensure I didn't feel too anxious or responsible about not being able to have children. Like me, my husband is an only child, and his parents were both working. As a result, he often spent time alone at home, longing for a family life, unlike me. I never felt lonely like he did because I would go to my parents' office after school, always surrounded by my parents and their employees. But I understand the importance of spending time with people. Therefore, I want to fulfill his wishes. I also want a child myself. And just to be safe, I'm going to see a doctor soon.
Is that really necessary?
If there's nothing wrong, then that's great. But if there is, it's better to know the cause, right?
Well, maybe that's true.
The following weekend, I went to the hospital alone. There are 2 reasons why I went to the hospital by myself. First, I thought that even if I got checked, they would probably tell me there's nothing wrong. Second, if there was something wrong, I didn't know what kind of face to make if my husband was there with me. I came to the hospital without thinking too seriously and waited for my name to be called while thinking about shopping for the way home. The tests were done quickly, but the results would come later, so I went home that day. 2 weeks later, the results of the tests were given to me. Why is it that bad news always seems to come first? After hearing the results, I didn't go shopping that day, but just walked home looking at the ground. I found out I'm infertile.
I see.
The night I heard the results at the hospital, I told my husband about my infertility. I chose to talk about it over dinner, hoping it would distract me a bit, but my words made the atmosphere at home really awkward, and both of us stopped eating. However, it wasn't all hopeless. There was still some hope. The doctor said that my infertility could be treated with about a 30% of success rate if treated properly. As you get over 30, the success rate of treatment drops. It looks like I just made it in time.
30%? And that rate is going to drop from now on, huh?
While I started moving my fork again, my husband's remained still. It seems there's a difference in perception between us regarding the number 30%. When I was told I was infertile, I despaired thinking I couldn't have children. However, hearing the 30% chance, I was happy thinking it was not a low number at all. But it seems like the number 30% didn't seem very high to my husband. Seeing his disappointed face made my fork stop again. Since that day, our marriage, which had been going smoothly, became somewhat awkward. Are you going to be home late again tomorrow?
Yeah.
As I was cleaning up the dishes, I spoke to my husband's back as he rested in the living room, and he responded disinterestedly. Since it became known that I am infertile, my husband started coming home late. He says he's busy with work, but probably he wants to reduce the time he spends at home as much as possible. Therefore, on his days off, he goes out early in the morning alone and doesn't come home until late at night. Because of my husband's late return, I started eating dinner by myself. Also, my husband stopped sleeping in the bedroom and started sleeping on the living room sofa. Even though he is in the house, many things became separate in our married life. I felt lonely as my husband's heart drifted away, but knowing the reason was me, I couldn't blame him. Half a year later, our marital relationship had completely cooled down and we hardly talked at home anymore. Today, being a holiday, my husband left the house early in the morning. Seeing him putting on his shoes at the entrance, I felt somewhat relieved. When my husband left, I felt a little lighter and could do laundry a bit more efficiently. However, as I was about to throw one of his shirts into the washing machine, I sighed. I thought, there's foundation on this again. This won't come off. Foundation was on my husband's shirt, but I wasn't surprised. It has been happening occasionally for the last 2 or 3 months. Since our relationship had already cooled off, I had no intention of making a big deal about infidelity. I spread out the shirt with foundation on it and resigned myself that it was probably time to end our married life. My husband probably felt the same. That's why he didn't bother hiding the infidelity and carelessly left shirts with foundation in the laundry basket. That night, I brought up divorce. Shall we end it? If we divorce, you can be with your new woman, right?
What? You knew?
I don't need any pretense. Since I'm not going to demand any compensation for the infidelity, can we separate smoothly?
Understood.
I have a job, so I don't need money. Moreover, my husband works for a major manufacturer, so even if I demanded compensation for the infidelity, it wouldn't hurt him much. Therefore, I would be happier if we could separate smoothly rather than having a messy divorce negotiation. My husband seemed to have anticipated what I would say and accepted the divorce without a flicker of his eyebrows. However, although I'm not asking for compensation, I was curious enough to want to know a little about his affair partner. What is she like, the other woman?
She's 2 years younger, and we met through our hobby of fishing.
Ah, so you were fishing on weekends. It's nice she would date a married man like you. I hope you haven't hidden the fact that you're married, right?
I've been honest with her. I told her I plan to divorce and that our relationship is with the intention of remarrying. It's just a matter of waiting for her now.
Waiting for her? You mean it's not an affair on her side, right?
No, she's single. I succeeded in a love affair.
I had a lot I wanted to say after hearing my husband's story. However, saying something unnecessary here might upset him and complicate the divorce. So I swallowed the words that had come to my throat. After that, the divorce was completed without issue. My husband immediately went to his new partner. Her boyfriend had apparently broken up with her, so they are planning to marry. I had braced myself thinking I would be okay with a divorce, but the shock was surprisingly big when it actually happened. I stayed at home for a while and continued working, but eventually I quit my job and moved back to my parents' house. 15 years after returning to my parents' house, surely the wounds from the divorce have healed, and I've become completely healthy. The time I was married has already been pushed to the corner of my memory, almost forgotten. Just as I was settling into this new life, I received a notification of a middle school reunion. There's a chance that my ex-husband, an old classmate, will attend. During the divorce, I prioritized a smooth separation, so I didn't get to say much. I didn't demand any compensation for the infidelity, but that doesn't mean I wasn't angry about it. Even though it's been 15 years, I thought I'd get a little revenge on my husband by attending the reunion. However, my little prank ended up greatly disrupting my ex-husband's life. On the day of the reunion, when I arrived at the venue, there were many familiar faces. I caught up with old friends, reminiscing about the past. While enjoying the conversation, a face I had almost forgotten approached from a distance.
Hey, long time no see. You've really turned into an old lady, huh?
My ex-husband, upon seeing me, greeted me with a laugh and an insult. If I'm an old lady, what does that make you? An old man? Just when I was enjoying the conversation, my ex-husband approached with a villainous grin, causing our friends to awkwardly distance themselves from us. We are divorced, you know. You could at least try to be a bit more considerate in the way you talk.
We used to be married, so I thought there's no need to hold back speaking in a casual way like that. Since our divorce, what have you been up to? Right after we split, I got married, you know. And right after getting married, I found out my wife was pregnant. Turns out she was already pregnant when we divorced. If you're not infertile, kids come easy. Now I'm living happily with my wife and son.
That's nice. I'm glad you're happy.
What about you? Oh, my bad. You're infertile and forever alone, huh? Over 30 and unable to have kids. No one's going to want you, right?
Huh? Who are you talking about? My ex-husband started showing off his photos from family outings on his phone and bragging about his new wife and son, trying to one-up me with his happiness. I found his stories dull and listened with an expressionless face. My ex-husband seems to be quite mistaken. Correcting this mistake alone will surely make him feel frustrated. As I was thinking about how to correct his misunderstanding, a little girl came up to me at just the right moment. "Mommy, I made a new friend." That's great, honey. Mommy is talking with this man right now, so go and play with your new friend a little longer. Okay. The girl obediently ran off energetically from the spot.
Hey, who is that kid?
What? She's my daughter. Didn't you know it was okay to bring kids today? Look, there are a few other children here too.
That's not what I mean. Didn't she just call you Mommy?
Yes, that's my daughter, Nicole. She's turning 10 this year.
You were infertile, right? How come you have a child? Oh, I get it. She must be your stepchild from a new marriage?
How rude. Nicole is my biological daughter.
Infertile and yet you have a child? Oh.
Didn't I tell you? Infertility can be treated. You just assumed it couldn't be cured. Sniggers and soft laughter could be heard from around us. My close friends knew about the divorce and that I had given birth to a child. Thus, my ex-husband, who was under the false impression that I couldn't have children and was trying to outshine me with his own, was laughed at by friends. It seems he realized he was being laughed at.
I see. You have a child, so you must have managed to get married again. Congratulations.
Embarrassed by his failed attempt to one-up me with his child, my ex-husband's face turned red. He offered congratulations on my childbirth and remarriage, likely as a way to hide his embarrassment and appear magnanimous.
Who would marry an old lady like you?
It was a workplace romance.
I see. Are you still working at that consulting firm?
Oh, you don't know? I took over my dad's company and now I'm the president. Dad hasn't retired yet. He's still working as the chairman.
What? I thought that company was going to be sold.
I moved back home after our divorce and decided to take over my dad's company. Over these 15 years, it's been tough, but now our annual sales are reaching $30 million. Well, we've moved from a small to mid-sized company.
What? $30 million?
Among local friends, it's somewhat well known that I've expanded my dad's company. Therefore, my ex-husband, who knew nothing, was laughed at again by friends.
You said running a company wasn't easy.
That's right, but after the divorce, I quit my job, so I could dedicate myself to rebuilding Dad's company. I did manage to grow my dad's company, but it was a continuous struggle. Initially, employees who had a bad impression of me suddenly coming back to take over the company were numerous. Therefore, I began by actively communicating with the staff to gain their trust. That alone took 2 years. Having gained the trust of the employees, I used my consulting experience to have my work skills recognized. This took about 3 years. During this time, I worked so hard that my physical and mental health suffered, but my current husband supported me through it. He also supported me through infertility treatments, and 10 years ago, we were able to have our daughter, Nicole. For 10 years after Nicole's birth, I continued to work tirelessly with the employees. And before I knew it, the company had broken through the annual sales barrier of $10 million commonly faced by enterprises. And now we're growing towards $30 million.
You are the president of a company with annual sales of $30 million?
Yes, you gave up on me because of my infertility and went off with another woman, not knowing I had the potential to become the president of a $30 million company. But I was able to have a child. How do you feel now? And how about you? Have you managed to become at least a sales manager by now? This time I asked my ex-husband with a villainous smile on my face. I don't know what his current position at the company is, but with a major manufacturer, there must be plenty of competition. Seeing my ex-husband silently gritting his teeth, I was certain he hadn't made much of a career advancement. I successfully countered his attempt to one-up me about his child and took the upper hand in our discussion about work. Seeing my ex-husband's frustrated face, I was already satisfied, but I decided to throw in one more bombshell. By the way, John, you said that your wife got pregnant right after you got married, right? You married right after we divorced, but your wife had just broken up with her boyfriend too, right? Isn't that really...
Are you suggesting it's not my child? It's definitely my child.
Saying that doesn't make it very convincing. You were having an affair, and so was she, right? Adultery and cheating, the possibility that my ex-husband's child could belong to someone else. These topics captured the interest of everyone around. So not only close friends of mine and my ex-husband, but also many others gathered around us. It was a bit embarrassing to be the center of attention, but clearly my ex-husband was a villain in the scene. Cold stares were focused on him. Realizing he was receiving cold looks, he seemed to flee from the venue. Satisfied with making my ex-husband embarrassed, I resumed conversing with my friends. My revenge on my ex-husband was completed. From now on, I suppose I will gradually forget about him. That's what I thought, but about a month after the reunion, my ex-husband called me. He probably got my number from a friend at the reunion. Wondering what he could possibly say, I reluctantly answered the phone.
Hey, did you know?
I racked my brain, wondering what he could be referring to, but couldn't think of anything, so I felt smoke almost coming out of my head. I decided to just ask him directly. What are you talking about? What is it?
It's about my child. Just like you said, it turns out he really isn't my child.
What's that? I shouldn't laugh, but I couldn't help bursting out laughing. My ex-husband seemed to have taken my words seriously and got a DNA test done. The results showed that the child my ex-husband and his new wife had was not biologically related to him.
How did you know that? And why didn't you tell me?
I didn't know either. I just thought it would be good if you got a little insecure and talked to your wife about it. Maybe even had a little fight. I never imagined it would actually be true. Was your wife cuckolding you?
No, my wife didn't know either. She thought the child was mine.
She had a boyfriend until just before she got pregnant, and neither of you bothered to check if the child was yours. That's your own fault. But you've been raising the child as your own for 15 years, so even if you're not biologically related, you're going to keep raising him as your child, right?
What? No way. I've been tricked into raising someone else's child for 15 years. Of course, we're getting divorced.
What? Just like during our divorce discussions, there's a lot I want to say to my ex-husband now. However, people's values vary, and it's not my place to comment on someone else's family matters. So I swallowed the words that were on the tip of my tongue. So you're getting a divorce?
That's the problem, I can't.
Why can't you get a divorce?
My wife won't agree to it.
Upon discovering the child wasn't his, my ex-husband tried to start divorce proceedings. At that time, his new wife put the divorce on hold and first reached out to her boyfriend from 15 years ago. Probably after the divorce, she wanted to see if she could rely on her former boyfriend. However, after she told the ex-boyfriend about the child, he became unreachable and apparently quit his job and disappeared. I can understand the feeling of wanting to flee upon receiving a sudden call from an ex-girlfriend saying you have a child. Unable to rely on her ex-boyfriend, my ex-husband's new wife, not wanting to be abandoned, is refusing the divorce. She gave birth to someone else's child, right? Doesn't that count as a reason for divorce?
That's where it gets complicated. It's not exactly infidelity since the child was conceived before our marriage. We both thought it was our child.
Apparently, the situation between my ex-husband and his new wife is messier than I imagined. My ex-husband explained in detail, but it involved legal issues that I couldn't fully grasp. However, I did understand some of it. Firstly, my ex-husband and his new wife believed the child was theirs, so legally, my ex-husband is recognized as the father. For my ex-husband to push through with a divorce, he needs to prove that he is not the child's father and legally nullify the parental relationship. However, there have been Supreme Court cases where it was decided that a paternal relationship could not be denied based on DNA test results, making this quite challenging. Even if the parental relationship is nullified, my ex-husband and his new wife believed the child was theirs, and neither investigated the child's paternity, so it's not entirely the new wife's fault. Since the new wife didn't intentionally deceive my ex-husband, there's a high possibility that a divorce might not be granted, using the child as a reason. In essence, the new wife, abandoned by the real father, refuses to divorce my ex-husband. My ex-husband wants to divorce, but not being the biological father is not accepted as a reason for divorce. That seems to be the situation. So basically, you want a divorce but can't, right?
That's right. I don't know what to do. Do I have to keep raising someone else's child?
Hearing my ex-husband's words, I sighed. You say it's someone else's child, but isn't he essentially your child now?
What? Why would he be my child? He's the child of my wife's ex-boyfriend.
I thought a bit of arguing might be okay, so I spoke a bit more forcefully, but it seems nothing resonates with my ex-husband. It appears that anything I say would be pointless. Look, I have nothing more to say to you. You divorced me thinking my infertility was incurable. You stole your new wife from her boyfriend, and you didn't check the paternity of the child. All of these were your decisions. Own up to your decisions and take responsibility. I yelled at my ex-husband and hung up the phone. How pathetic for my ex-husband to whine to his ex-wife, whom he divorced 15 years ago. That day, when I returned home from work, my husband and daughter were happily watching TV in the living room. Watching them from behind, I felt truly glad that I had divorced my ex-husband. Ultimately, unable to get a divorce, my ex-husband has moved out and is living separately from his new wife and child. If the separation lasts for about 3 to 5 years, it could be grounds for divorce. However, until the divorce, he must continue to pay for the living expenses and child support of his estranged wife and child. My ex-husband's child is now 15 years old, so even if they divorce in 3 years, the child will already be of adult age. His new wife, assessing when to let go, is unlikely to resist the divorce next time. Clearly, his new wife is in a winning position in this scenario. Also, they haven't yet told the child about his real father. Therefore, the child resents his mother and him for suddenly leaving the home. If the child resents my ex-husband, he might actually be relieved to learn he is not his biological child when he finds out the truth. However, knowing the truth might also make him dislike my ex-husband even more. When that time comes, I hope he faces the child's anger instead of running away. By then, my ex-husband will have gone through a second divorce and probably be done with marriage for good. My ex-husband, who tried to belittle me because he thought I couldn't have children, ended up being outdone by me in both children and career, and my little mischievous remark turned his life upside down. If he knew this would happen, maybe he should have never tried to make himself look good. I continue to work hard as always. Unlike my ex-husband, our family relationship is healthy. Right now, we're in the middle of discussing where to go on our next holiday.
Hey, how much assets does your dad have? What? Why all of a sudden? Didn't he retire last year too? I was just thinking about his retirement funds and if he might be worried about it. Are you thinking about managing my dad's assets through your bank? I've been thinking about his future too. Maybe it'd be better to increase his retirement funds. Our bank offers various services like investment trusts and foreign currency deposits. Even if you say that, I don't really know much about it. Your father worked for a big corporation, and he must have received a decent retirement bonus. Plus, that house and land, they must be worth quite a lot. Jason said, his eyes sparkling. Seeing that look on his face made me feel like he was more interested in getting his hands on the assets rather than genuinely increasing my father's wealth. I am Sandra Parker, a 35-year-old part-time homemaker with no children yet. I am too busy with work to even think about children, but being 35, I have thought about taking it seriously. Hey, this is amazing. What? The land of your family home, it's worth a lot. The area has been developing, and land prices are skyrocketing. You looked that up? It's important, isn't it? It might be better to sell it now and buy an apartment somewhere else. Why are you getting ahead of yourself? That's for my parents to decide, not us. If you suggest it, your father and mother might get interested. My family home belongs to my father and mother. Whatever it's worth, it's none of our business. Plus, it's the house I grew up in and have many memories and attachments to. It's very reassuring to know that such a family home exists. There's no way I would talk to my parents about selling it and moving somewhere else. Of course, if they decide to sell it and want to live somewhere else, I'd be a little sad but wouldn't oppose it. In fact, I don't think I'm in a position to either oppose or support it. Moreover, the money from the sale would belong to my parents, and we have no right to it. I don't understand why my husband can't see that. Recently, I'm frankly fed up with my husband who keeps talking about such things. Perhaps his sales performance has been dropping, and he's desperately eyeing my family's assets. My husband works in the sales department of a major bank. My in-laws run a small dried goods store in a rural area. They are not bad people, but they are somewhat proud that their only son is an elite banker. It's lucky for you to marry an elite banker like my son. I was told when we went to greet them prior to the wedding, but I just smiled and nodded. My husband hated country life and moved to the city to attend university. He graduated from a fairly well-known university and worked at a well-known city bank. Before we got married, he didn't brag much about it, but after 2 or 3 years of marriage, he often said, "You're lucky, you know. A mere clerk at a small company, married to an elite banker like me. You can brag about it to your friends, huh?" Even if my husband is very capable and indeed an elite, boasting to friends about it would just be showing off. But well, as long as he says it at home, it's harmless, and if it makes him feel better about his job, I thought I might as well boost his ego. Men in their 30s, working in such environments, often have a tough time dealing with both higher-ups and subordinates. So, even though I internally thought, "What the heck is that about?" I went along with it appropriately. "Really, I'm glad I could marry you." Saying this keeps my husband in a good mood, and it's much better than contradicting him and creating a hostile atmosphere. Now I think maybe that thought has made my husband a bit too arrogant. I graduated from the economics department of a university and joined a company that manufactures and sells electronic components. It's not a major corporation, but it's a fairly well-known company that has contracts with major electronics manufacturers and has several sales offices nationwide. I work in the accounting department there. My husband's bank and my company have a business relationship, and he often visited my company for sales purposes, which is how we naturally started talking and eventually began dating. I thought he was a bit too confident, but I have always been told I am too serious or too rigid, so maybe someone like him was just right for me. From my school days, I was focused on studying, and even at university, while I did discuss with male classmates, it never developed into dating. So, he was my first boyfriend. I probably wasn't very experienced with men. Looking back, I think he might have exaggerated his boasts, but to me, it sounded like a joke. Thus, after dating for a year and a half, we decided to get married. I never had the concept of quitting my job after marriage, and during our dating period, I talked about continuing to work, so there was no discussion about quitting or not, and I just continued working normally. We visit my in-laws once or twice a year, about which they never say much. My husband says, "I'm busy with work." And they seem to be satisfied with that. It can't be helped, he's an elite banker. My mother-in-law says, "Actually, I've been getting busier too, so it's helpful for me." Then, 7 years into our marriage, my mother unusually called me at work one day. The moment the phone rang, I had a bad feeling, a premonition. "Hello, Sandra. My husband has. My father passed away suddenly." It was truly unexpected. That day, my parents had gone shopping together in the morning, had lunch outside, and returned home. My father said he felt sleepy and would take a nap in the bedroom. It was unusual for him to say that, so it felt odd, but my mother was busy with household chores. About 2 hours later, thinking of having dessert together, she went to the bedroom to wake him up, but found him lifeless. She called an ambulance immediately, but the paramedics said he was already breathless at the scene. Despite efforts at the hospital, his consciousness did not return, and they declared him deceased. Yet, my mother managed the funeral arrangements efficiently, contacting father's friends and colleagues from the company he had worked at until the previous year. She was so busy that it worried me. But perhaps she needed to stay active to keep her composure. If only I had gone to the bedroom sooner, why didn't I find his unusual behavior suspicious? These regrets were swirling in my mother's heart, I could tell. Watching her go through this, and the sudden loss of my father, was unbearably painful. Still, we managed to get through my father's funeral smoothly. But the real sorrow would come later. Especially for my mother, I worried if she would be all right. My parents had always seemed like such a loving couple, enviable even from a daughter's perspective. Busy times might distract her, but once things settled down after the funeral, the sorrow would surely overwhelm her. At the time, I too had work responsibilities I couldn't leave for long. Then my aunt, my father's sister, said she would stay with my mother, so I asked her to. My aunt and mother had been close since high school and got along very well. My aunt is a straightforward and caring person, and my mother often relied on her. I left things in my aunt's hands and stepped back. The day after the funeral, my husband said something outrageous. "Now that your father has passed, that means we can sell that house, right?" "Huh? What are you talking about?" "Well, you're inheriting it, right? It's yours, isn't it?" My mother is still there. "It's not just me to inherit. That house is too big for just your mother. Just sell it and put her in a nursing home or something. She'll make friends there and won't be lonely. Don't say stupid things. How can she even think about that now? My father's funeral was just yesterday." "What, you can't mean?" "What? You're not thinking of renouncing the inheritance, are you?" "What if I am?" "I haven't thought about that yet, but I think it might be okay. My mother has been busy and looks very worn out. Does this person not realize it's not the time for such discussions?" "No way. I won't allow that." "Listen, I'm going to be clear about this." "What are you talking about?" "Your father's estate is mine. If you don't like it, let's divorce," Jason said with a smug look. What is with this overconfident face? How can he confidently say that the inheritance I receive is his? I don't understand at all. Moreover, suggesting divorce as if I would hand everything over to him if I wanted to avoid it. Where does this confidence, or rather this arrogance, come from? Basically, the property a wife inherits from her parents doesn't become her husband's property. Even a bank employee should understand that much. I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you please stop saying such nonsense? Do you think I'm not serious? Serious or not, my father's estate has nothing to do with you, I said, and Jason stormed out. Maybe he was angry because things didn't go his way, but I don't care anymore. To say such a thing so casually, bragging about being an elite is on a whole different level. At such a time, I can't imagine continuing to live with someone who says such inconsiderate things. As I was pondering what to do, about 20 minutes later, Jason came back and put a divorce paper in front of me, already signed by him. Perhaps he went to get it just now. He must think he doesn't need a wife who won't do as he wishes. Well, that makes things quicker. See? Now you understand I'm serious. Yeah, I got it. Well, that's straightforward. You should have been like this from the start. Jason nodded with satisfaction at my response and went into another room. He was strangely smirking that night, and I briefly wondered if he was thinking about something different than I was, but I didn't touch on that topic and just let the evening pass. The next day, when Jason went to work, I quickly packed my personal belongings and went back to my parents' house. I explained the situation to my mother and aunt, and submitted it immediately, then headed to the bank where Jason worked. Usually out for sales, Jason was unusually inside the bank that day. Well, that was convenient. When he saw my face, he smirked. I acted as if nothing was wrong and went to the counter, smiling brightly. I'd like to cancel all the accounts our company has with your bank. What? Since Jason was watching, I made sure he could hear it too. He panicked and rushed over to me. Hey, what are you saying? Don't joke around, this is my workplace. You're not making any sense. I know what I'm doing. We're getting a divorce, so I thought I'd withdraw all the accounts. What? Probably, he was not expecting that answer. He must have been absolutely sure I would never go through with a divorce. From my point of view, I wonder if there's any woman who wouldn't divorce after being told such things. Between the divorce and canceling the accounts, Jason was probably panicking by now. What do you mean, we're getting a divorce? Well, you said it. If I didn't like handing over my father's estate, we should get divorced. So I didn't like it, and I just filed those divorce papers. Wait, that was a joke, right? No one actually files for divorce over something like that. Jason, you signed the divorce papers yourself and shoved them at me. Jason looked dumbfounded for a moment. What is there to be confused about? He handed me the divorce papers himself. What did he think, that I wouldn't actually file them? Did he think I was just a woman who would do whatever he said, seriously underestimating me? Although I was listening to his bragging and casually praising him, maybe he thought I was seriously praising him. No way, I was just reading the script, so he should be able to tell that there was no real emotion in it. Why? I don't get it at all? Well, obviously it's divorce then. Huh? Seriously? Divorce and account cancellation? Why? Who would stay married and hand over the parents' estate to the husband? Here is one, right? Hell, no. I was so angry that I couldn't help but speak harshly. What would I do if my dignity was doubted? Really, I just want him to give me a break. But you can't live without me, right? Excuse me? Really, did he actually believe that? I can't believe this foolish husband. He really overdid it. To you, I'm your proud husband. You're totally in love with me and don't want to leave me, right? I was at a loss for words at his statement. Isn't it embarrassing to say such things without shame? What is going on inside his head? I'm just astonished. Oh no. I couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. Anyway, the divorce papers have been filed, so you and I will be strangers in several months. Just make sure the account cancellation is processed properly. No future dealings with a bank that employs someone like you. Wait. What are you saying? Even if we get divorced, the company's account has nothing to do with it. You're just an accounting clerk. What right do you have to say such things? Oh, right. I hadn't mentioned it. I do the accounting, but I just became the president of the company. What? I hadn't told my husband something. The company I worked for was originally started by my mother's father, my grandfather. I joined my grandfather's company with the intention of taking it over from the start. I didn't assume I would naturally take over just because I was the grandchild, and I didn't want others to think so either. That's why I hid the fact that I was the granddaughter and just got a job and worked hard like everyone else. I kept it hidden partly because there was another reason why I hadn't told my husband about it. My grandparents had divorced when my mother was a child. My mother was raised by my grandmother. The reason for their divorce was that my grandfather, who had just started the company, was always busy and irritable, often taking it out on my grandmother. Eventually, their feelings drifted apart, leading to divorce. For my mother, the memories of my grandfather were always of him yelling, a frightening presence, so she rarely wanted to see him. Hearing this, I became a bit curious about what kind of person he was, and I decided to meet him when I entered high school. My first impression of my grandfather was completely different from what I had heard. He seemed very calm. He appeared strict yet kind. It seemed he had long regretted being too absorbed in his work and neglecting his family. Since the family had fallen apart because of him, he couldn't bring himself to contact us, and he was very happy when I visited him. I often heard stories about managing the company from my grandfather, which gradually sparked my interest in business management. After graduating from university, I joined my grandfather's company without hesitation, and my mother didn't object. At my wedding, my grandfather and my mother reunited, holding hands and crying. When I joined the company, my grandfather was already 72 years old and had stepped down as president to become the chairman, with the managing director who had supported him taking over as president. However, that president fell ill 3 years ago. Fortunately, it wasn't serious, but since then, I had been supporting, or rather being supported by, the president while doing accounting and becoming involved in running the company. And just last month, I became the president. My father was very happy about it. I hadn't made it public yet because I wanted to wait until all the internal transitions were complete. Wait a minute. You're the president? I'm hearing this for the first time. Are you kidding? It's true, well, although it's just a medium-sized company with an annual turnover of about $100 million, as you always say. You're the president and the chairman's granddaughter? Why didn't you say that earlier? That changes everything. What changes? Then, even if you don't inherit your father's estate, I won't divorce you. What kind of reasoning is that? Doesn't he listen to people at all? I already said I had filed for divorce, which means we would be divorced in several months. How can he not understand that, and yet he calls himself an elite banker? That reminded me again of what my grandfather had said. Men often lose their drive or become servile when they think their wives have money. It's best not to tell your husband about you becoming president until it becomes publicly undeniable. Just as I was reflecting on this, the branch manager came over looking pale. Excuse me. I hear that you are thinking about canceling all your accounts here. It seemed that a bank employee who had overheard our conversation had informed the branch manager. I'm sorry for the disturbance. Please proceed with the account cancellation process. For more details, please ask Mr. Parker here. Jason. What on earth is going on? Well, this is... There was no point in arguing here, so I left. Well, I had said what I needed to say, and I had plenty of other things to do. I couldn't stay here any longer. Changing banks is quite a hassle, but I couldn't continue dealing with a bank that employs such a man. Plus, I was planning to make various changes in the company, so it felt like a fresh start. As I was walking away... Wait for me. Oh no. Hearing a voice, I turned around to see my husband chasing after me, crying, and then he started apologizing there. I really wish he'd stop. People around us were looking at us as if something was happening. It was quite embarrassing. Stop it, please. Please reconsider the divorce. Without you, I have no standing. Is his status more important than our divorce? I felt like retorting, but I didn't even want to speak to him anymore. I just wanted to get away from this situation. That's none of my business. Please, it's not just about the account cancellation, my elite life is falling apart. I told you, I don't know. I ran away from my still pleading husband. I don't know why I had to run, but being faced with a man crying and apologizing in public was too much for me, given the curious stares. I guess I'm still not very brave. Afterward, my husband tried to contest the divorce, but it didn't go through. The divorce form unmistakably bore my husband's signature, written just the day before. His plea that he hadn't intended to divorce was not accepted. It was good I filed it immediately. If I had waited, there might have been a chance for him to claim he no longer intended to divorce. The bank transition went smoothly, and I publicly announced my presidency. My ex-husband was demoted because of this incident. Apparently, as I suspected, his sales performance had been declining, and he couldn't secure new clients, although he had boasted to others that he was about to land a big contract. He had been completely depending on my parents' assets. After our exchange at the bank, my ex-husband's schemes became widely known, and he was looked down upon at the bank. It's your fault I lost my position. Take responsibility. He made such an absurd phone call, but I ignored it completely. Eventually, he couldn't withstand the cold treatment from those around him and left the bank. Now he is almost living reclusively at his parents' house, and recently my former mother-in-law called complaining. It's embarrassing to the neighbors, I wish he would leave. To which I responded. Spoiling him led to such selfishness, didn't it? She was speechless. I haven't heard from her since. I am now fully engaged with my work. I don't have time to deal with my ex-husband. But soon, I'm looking forward to having a meal with my grandfather and mother. That's my greatest joy right now, and I plan to continue devoting myself even more to my work. My name is Tracy. I'm 39 years old and I enjoy watching movies with my husband during breaks from parenting and household chores. I feel fortunate that we can keep the romance alive and not just be husband and wife but lovers, like before we were married. My friends often tell me my husband treats me more like a mom than a lover or wife. Tracy, I'm so jealous. It's not bad being in a couple's mood no matter the age. I hope we can keep this relationship going in the future. We never fight, but there was one time when our relationship nearly reached a breaking point. It happened when we were still in our 20s. Brian said, "Should we get married soon?" About 6 months into our relationship. Brian, who was still just my boyfriend at the time, suddenly proposed. He said it as casually as if he were suggesting going to the store. He proposed while we were watching TV in my room, so naturally, there was no mood. And it wasn't the romantic proposal I had dreamed of. But this genuine, unforced proposal felt very us, and I liked that. I immediately accepted his proposal, and we decided to get married. We had been dating for 6 months. I didn't know everything about him, but I knew his character well enough. I thought I could be happy with him, but then, 3 weeks after his proposal, he said with a troubled look, "Something complicated has come up." His unusually exhausted expression made me worried, too. "What's wrong?" I asked. "My sister, she wants to meet you." "Huh? We'll go to greet her for the marriage, right?" "We'll meet her then." "Yes, but she wants to meet just us before the greeting." "Oh, that's nice. I'm happy she wants to meet." "Well, it's a bit complicated with my family." "What do you mean?" Brian reluctantly started to explain something quite serious for me. Who was about to marry into his family. Apparently, his family was quite wealthy. His father had won the lottery when he was single and used that money to start a candy company in their hometown. Gradually, their store became established in the community, and now they have second and third stores in the county. "Wow," I said, and he chuckled bitterly, "Just nouveau riche." His tone was harsher than humble. "That's not like him. You don't have to talk about your family like that." "No, that's really how it is. My dad's sense of money is skewed because of that sudden wealth. And my sister, she's like that, too." "Oh. I can't explain it well, but because they're such a troublesome family. I'm actually worried about introducing you to them during the marriage meeting. He's usually a calm person who never speaks ill of others." It was surprising and increasingly worrying to hear him speak so harshly about his own family. What kind of troublesome family were they, I wondered. But I'm generally positive. I told him, "It's okay, I'd love to meet your sister since we have the chance." He reluctantly agreed, "If you say so." So came the day I first met his sister, Jenny. I was wrong. I was speechless at the tyrannical behavior of the sister-in-law. She looked every bit the wealthy person, from her appearance. Even I, who am not familiar with brands, could tell she was carrying a famous brand bag. And her accessories included large gemstones. I couldn't tell the brands of her clothes and shoes since they didn't have visible logos. But they must all be branded, too. Why do I assume that? Because Brian had told me beforehand that his sister didn't work and was still receiving an allowance from her parents while living at home, even though she was nearing 30. Such a winner in the unemployed world, a super elite unemployed. She said to me during the meal, "I had someone I wanted Brian to marry. She's a friend of mine, from a wealthy family, too. Okay. Stop it, sis. Confused me, and the sister-in-law who was proceeding with the conversation as if she didn't care. And Brian chiding her quickly cooled the atmosphere between the three of us. When I told you that discussion was over, Brian said, and she snapped, "Don't talk back to your sister. You should just listen to what your sister says." The younger son born later. Marriage is my choice. No, you always sulk so easily. You're really the most selfish one in our family. In this house, a reasonable argument is interpreted as selfishness. And it seems they are people who don't hesitate to impose unreasonable demands. Brian sighed deeply with genuine annoyance. We've met with Tracy now, so let's go home, and he got up from his seat. He went to pay first. I quickly followed him and took out my wallet. Meanwhile, the sister-in-law made no move to take out hers, even though she was the one who had invited us today. The younger brother who was invited ended up paying for his sister's meal. I couldn't help but think that it's really the sister-in-law who is the selfish one. Give me your contact information, Tracy. Saying this, the sister-in-law reached for her phone, not even bothering to pull out her wallet. Yes. Reluctantly, I gave her my contact because she's his sister after all. Brian had told me repeatedly not to give it to her. But she's going to be my family by marriage. I couldn't just snub her. However, I was wrong again. 2 days after our meeting, I received an email from the sister-in-law that read, "I've decided my brother will marry my friend after all. I've arranged for them to meet, so please step aside." I was alone in my room when I read it, but I couldn't help but say aloud, "What is this?" Should I reply? Ignoring it didn't seem right. But what could I possibly respond to such a message? As I was pondering this, more emails from the sister-in-law kept coming in. "I do not accept you as part of our family. You and he are not a good match. I want him to marry someone decent so that she can support me after our parents are gone. Don't interfere." It seemed she had no intention of working, and fully expected her brother to support her in the future. I didn't reply to her emails and immediately informed Brian. As soon as he saw the emails, his face went pale, and upon questioning him, he confessed. My sister introduced her friend to me. I thought the emails were just lies and threats to break us up. But apparently, she was serious. What about me? Am I going to be dumped? There's no way that's going to happen. Brian exclaimed angrily. Sorry for raising my voice. No, it's okay. But I have no intention of marrying her friend. And what's with these emails? I don't even plan to support my sister. Yet she's making all these arrangements behind my back. Seeing him so angry at his sister's actions, I felt relieved. Unlike his sister, he was truly a decent person. 2 weeks passed. He told me to block his sister's emails, but I thought that would be too much and didn't do it. Since then, I haven't received any more emails from her. He also firmly refused to date the woman his sister was pushing. The situation was troublesome because the woman took a liking to him, and the sister-in-law was eager to set them up. But you can't just proceed with something ignoring the person's will. Unexpected obstacles had come up. But today was finally the day of our marriage introduction. That meant meeting his parents. My parents were also coming. Brian suggested, maybe we should just call it off? It's not going to end well anyway. But that wasn't acceptable. I wanted to do things properly. Just because the sister-in-law is crazy doesn't mean his parents aren't respectable. He told me not to expect much. But you don't know until you meet them. However, it was a mistake for the third time. Nice to meet you. You're Tracy? Yes, nice to meet you. Please take care of me. Brian's father looked at me sternly. That look alone told me they didn't think well of me. Brian's mother gave a small nod, and right next to her, the sister-in-law smirked and said, "Long time no see, Tracy." There was zero welcoming mood. It was a surprising no response. How could they dislike me without even meeting me? It must be the sister-in-law's doing. Where are Tracy's parents? My mother is working today. She'll join us as soon as she finishes. My father is stuck in traffic. I'm sorry for making you wait on such an important day. Really now, we're taking time out of our busy schedules to be here. With that, Brian's father snorted. I could only apologize, feeling down, but Brian reassured me, "Don't worry about it." Trying to ease the tension, I suggested, "Shall we start the meal?" "Of course," said his father. It felt uncomfortable, though. Such a tense atmosphere. "I've been looking forward to the food here," said the sister-in-law excitedly as she looked around the restaurant. Brian's mother added, "I wanted to come here too, but it's always been hard to get a reservation." Today's meeting place was a famous old high-end restaurant in the neighboring town, featured on TV. The French cuisine made from organic vegetables and local fresh meat and fish is superb. And despite the price, it has many repeat customers. Reservations are necessary, and it's so popular that it's hard to book, making a second visit difficult for many. Trying to improve my image, Brian explained to his family. Tracy managed to get the reservation. "Wow, you managed to get it," his mother looked surprised. I laughed. Thanks to him, the atmosphere seemed a bit more relaxed at first. That's good, I thought, and then, "By the way, what do your parents do for work, Tracy?" Brian's father asked. "I don't even know," Brian added. "What? You don't know what your girlfriend's parents do?" "I'm not dating her parents, so it doesn't matter." "What if her family wants you to take over their business?" "Then that's fine by me, I guess. You know, Howard may be the heir, but you're also an important son to our family," Brian's father said. In response to his father's words, Brian retorted with annoyance. "You mean an important tool, right? It's my life, let me live it how I want." Howard, who was absent that day, is his brother. Unlike Brian, who often clashes with his family, Howard seems to get along very well with them, and has been directly appointed by his father to take over the company. Really, I wanted to stabilize the company by marrying him off to a wealthy girl, his father grumbled. Jenny chimed in condescendingly, "Such a disgrace to the parents." "I don't want to be lectured by a sister who's still clinging to her parents' apron strings," Brian retorted, causing his mother to remain silent. The atmosphere was terrible. Girls should just stay home and take care of the house. "Don't worry, Jenny, I'll find you a good match soon enough. Papa, you're the best." With that, Jenny smiled, not entirely displeased by her father's words. Seeing this, I thought, like father, like daughter. Brian sighed. It's embarrassing how his disreputable family behaves in their usual manner in front of his fiancée. So, getting back to the subject, Tracy's parents are. Just as his father tried to steer the conversation back, a waiter appeared and announced, "Your guest has arrived," followed by my father peeking through. "Sorry for being late," my father apologized, dressed in a suit. Even the usually rude father-in-law couldn't afford to be disrespectful in front of my father, who was slightly older, managing only a terse, no. The roads were so congested, and my car isn't comfortable at all. My back is killing me from the long drive, my father laughed heartily. What kind of car do you drive? The father-in-law asked. A light truck. I'm a farmer, so I often need to carry soil. Can't really drive anything flashy. Thanks to that, I'm on my third light truck. Just keep buying them over and over. My father laughed again, while the father-in-law's face seemed permanently contorted. What did you say now? He demanded with a demonic glare, causing me and my father to look puzzled. Is there a problem with a light truck? Would a large pickup truck have been more acceptable? You said you're a farmer? Yes. My father nodded several times, visibly intimidated by the father-in-law's stare. In between, Brian said positively, "Oh, you're a farmer," and I smiled, "Yes." Unbelievable. The father-in-law stood up abruptly and slammed the table hard. Not only us, but other customers also looked shocked. Jenny was right, love marriages are worthless. Bringing such a despicable poor person into our family. I couldn't believe my ears. Is he calling me a despicable poor person? Isn't that extremely rude? Brian, cut ties with this woman right now. I will not accept her as my daughter-in-law. What? It's not up to you to choose my partner. No. Her family is nowhere near a match for ours. What do you mean not a match? You act like a local dignitary. But you're just nouveau riche from a lottery win. That's when my father stepped in. I'm sorry, but why must you say such things? The father-in-law snorted through his nose. Humph, if you don't even understand that, you're even less suitable as a spouse. It's just a farmer, you know? A farmer. What's wrong with being a farmer? Day in, day out, covered in mud, crawling on the ground just like a lowly citizen. Probably best friends with moles and worms. It's outrageous to come to a high-end restaurant in a light truck. Isn't it embarrassing that you've proven yourself to be such a poor person? With no common sense? I don't think my job is as lowly as you say, and while I might understand a dress code, I don't think there's one for cars. What's wrong with a light truck? After all, my parents and I are not the same entity. Oh please, the howling of the poor. Stop whining and go back to being poor. The marriage is off. With that, the father-in-law slammed the table again. Brian was arguing back. But it seemed there was no reasoning with this stubborn father-in-law. My father probably felt the same. Shall we go? He looked at me as if to say, give up, and I steeled myself. Yeah. Taking my response, he stood up then, we'll be leaving. Go, go. I'll pay for the meal of the poor, so just disappear quickly. The father-in-law shouted abusively. Brian was angry, demanding his father stop, but his words fell on deaf ears. Don't defy your parents, he screamed. And then threw a framed picture from the wall at us. The sudden display of violence from the father-in-law froze us all in place. Even the waiter, carrying soup, was stunned by the overturned bowl. Jenny seemed a bit surprised but smirked, serves you right, as she looked at us. Such a spiteful nature. The mother-in-law, witnessing all this, did nothing to admonish Jenny or her husband. Brian, dismayed by the situation, apologized. Sorry for making you feel bad. I'll get in touch properly. And urged me to go home for the day. After leaving the restaurant with my father, my cell phone rang a short while later as we drove away. The caller was the sister-in-law, Jenny. Why would she call at this time? I thought. And while I casually checked my bag to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything, my phone rang again. Dad, I'm getting a call from that lady over there. Just ignore it. But she's really persistent. Look, it stopped, but now she's calling again. Well, I guess you have to answer it then. I sighed, resigned, and answered the call from Jenny. Hello? Jenny? Finally, you answered. Please, I'm begging you, come back to the restaurant. Jenny sounded nearly hysterical on the phone. What on earth was going on? Huh? What's suddenly come up? You were the ones who told us to leave. Well, I don't really understand. But the restaurant staff said they won't forgive you unless they apologize to you. Oh. Hearing that, I couldn't help but smile wryly. I see, that's what this is about. I chuckled inwardly, thinking things were getting interesting. Could it be that the picture frame that your father threw got broken? Yes. Not only that, but the spilled soup stained the painting inside it. Oh dear. That sounds like an expensive item was ruined. Now they're saying we have to compensate for it. But they might forgive you if you apologize. What kind of relationship do you have with the restaurant staff? They keep telling me to ask you directly, and won't tell me anything. That restaurant is run by our relatives. What? Didn't you find it strange? A popular restaurant that usually requires a year's reservation. And yet, we managed to book for 2 families within a month of the proposal. Now that you mention it. It was because it's run by relatives. We were lucky to get seats due to a cancellation. And by the way, my mother works there too. Remember the person who brought the soup? That was my mother. What? That person, she's the one saying you need to apologize. She probably saw everything and got angry on our behalf. I don't really understand, but please come back to the restaurant. I was about to say no when Jenny let out a small squeal. What now? Tracy? Please, I'm begging you, come back to the restaurant. Brian's father had taken the phone. Their pleas sounded so similar, I couldn't help but laugh a little. I decided to let my dad join the conversation and switched my phone to speaker mode. I refuse. Weren't you the one who told us to leave? I retorted with a smirk. I'm sorry. I had no idea you were affiliated with the restaurant. Why would you lie about being a farmer? I wasn't lying. My father is a farmer, and though he's listed as the owner, my aunt actually manages the place. If you had told me earlier. A daughter connected to this restaurant is certainly not a poor person. She's suitable for my son. Let's forget what happened today. And please come into our family. After what's been said, it's too late. What? Are you dissatisfied? It's irritating the way you're speaking. You haven't apologized, and as soon as you find the family is convenient for you, you flip your stance and say to come into your family. It's extremely unpleasant. You dare to act high and mighty. It's also your fault for not behaving like rich people. At that, my father chuckled as Brian's father started to get irate. Do you think acting like a rich person involves yelling? And intimidating someone you think is beneath you? What? What's so fun about flaunting your wealth? If that's all the joy you have, that's pretty sad. What do you mean, acting high and mighty? You're boasting about being wealthy, but what's the point? Is it enjoyable to be envied by others? Or do you want to increase your chances of being robbed? If so, that's quite an unusual hobby. I couldn't help but laugh at my father's pointed comments. Brian's father, clearly infuriated by the response, was huffing and puffing over the phone. My father could almost see his irritated face, and seemed to be enjoying provoking him. Did you deliberately make him angry, Dad? You're still such a mischief maker. Despite offering to accept the marriage, you disregard my generosity. If that's your idea of generosity, we don't need it. Just as my father firmly spoke, Brian's voice resonated through the room. I don't need Dad's approval anyway. I was taken aback and listened intently to the voice. What are you talking about, Brian? Coming out of nowhere, his father said, clearly annoyed. It's fine. Today is the last day I'll deal with Dad anyway. What? What do you mean? I want to marry Tracy, so I'm cutting ties with this family. That's why Dad doesn't need to approve our marriage. What? Do you think such selfishness is allowed? Do you really think you have the right to approve your child's marriage? If you leave the family, who will smooth over the issue with the damaged picture frame at that woman's house? That's why I'm leaving. I'm tired of being used. Brian's angry voice silenced his father. What am I to you, Dad? Expected to support my jobless sister, marry rich for the family. Build connections in case the business fails, never talk back. I'm not a slave. You're the one who never talks back, so I prepared the best life for you. Why would supporting a sister who doesn't work be considered the best life for me? The best life always seems to be reserved for her. That's, well, I know the reason behind our parents' unhappy marriage. What? My father and I were taken aback. I thought they just didn't talk much, but it seems Brian's parents really didn't get along. Dad, you think I'm not your child, don't you? That's. Brian's father stumbled over his words, and our expressions stiffened. You've been misunderstanding Mom, thinking she had an affair with the store manager? I heard it from Grandma, who passed away. That's not a misunderstanding. Mom was unusually close to that man back then. That's because you were hitting Mom even at the store out of stress from work. And the manager was just looking out for her. I don't know the real story. Mom is innocent. Everyone from that time said so, and my genes say the same. What? I had a DNA test done with Dad. The result showed a 99.9% probability that I am his biological son. A bit disappointing, though. What? Brian's father's voice faded, and his mother intervened. Why can't you? I had a DNA test done between Brian and you two. I showed you the results. But you didn't believe it. I can't believe a word that cheating woman says. Don't say things just because you're convinced of them. I've told you many times, I am innocent. His mother's voice was tearful, likely overwhelmed by years of sorrow. Well, anyone could see she's innocent. I've even talked to the manager's wife, who wasn't suspicious but rather worried about Mom. And yet, because of unfounded accusations, she was driven to resign. It's sad what happened to the manager. Brian sighed. He says his sister and brother resemble their father. But he is said to be like his mother. Shortly before it was known his mother was pregnant, his parents clashed over business management, leading to their discord. His mother had consulted the then manager, asking, "Can everyone really keep up with such management policies?" Brian's father mistook this for an affair, seeing his newly born son's face, thinking, "The older two resemble me, but this one doesn't. He must be the manager's child." For years, he was less loved in the family, yet expected to take care of his sister in the future, treated more like a tool. Worried about Mom, I didn't cut ties with the family. But if I have to choose between such a family and a new one I might build with Tracy, I choose the latter. As of today, I'm cutting ties with this family. Brian. Think it over. Say something, Mom. If Brian leaves, Howard will have to take care of Jenny. His declaration panicked his father. Nevertheless, the content of his words was despicable. He repeatedly expressed his desire not to lose a cash cow son. "I was wrong," his mother murmured. "What?" both his father and sister exclaimed. "I kept hoping that eventually, Brian would be acknowledged as your son. That even a marriage for money could turn into one for love. I persisted out of stubbornness. But that was the wrong choice. I've only caused Brian pain." His mother's words left his father slightly trembling. "What do you mean? Please divorce me. I can't take it anymore. Brian, be free. I'm sorry for everything. I gave up arguing because nothing got through to you, and that hurt you. Mom. How can such selfishness be allowed?" While he was lost for words, his father vociferously claimed his own self-centered views. "Even if you don't agree, the law will recognize it. If you won't agree to a divorce, I will take it to court," Brian's mother stated calmly. "Wait. Let's calm down, okay? If we talk it out, I'm sure we cannot understand each other." "How can you say that? Though we couldn't see him over the phone." His disheartened tone painted a clear picture of Brian's father slumping down. Just when the line went silent, my mother's voice chimed in. "Sorry to interrupt while you're all heated up, but the frame and painting, you'll need to compensate us $80,000, okay? $80,000. You said it was $50,000. Jenny panicked. "No, the painting itself is $50,000, and the frame is $30,000. I felt like you weren't really listening, and it turns out you really weren't. You've got to be kidding." Brian's laughter burst through the phone, replacing Jenny's despairing voice. My father and I also shared a laugh, saying, "What a perfect ending," and then we hung up. Afterward, Brian, as he declared, cut ties with his family and even took my surname, expressing a desire to change his name. My father was overjoyed, saying, "I've gained a son." Soon, Brian might officially become his son-in-law. Following the divorce, Brian's parents separated. His father was not only required to split the assets with his mother, but also had to pay compensation for the emotional distress caused during their marriage, with the obligation to also settle the payments for the frame and painting. It was a significant loss. Though they were wealthy, this level of expense was still notable. Freed from her marriage, Brian's mother felt emboldened, or perhaps more relaxed, and began sharing her past grievances with local people. This chatter ended up on a community online forum, leading to rampant speculation that quickly smeared the store's reputation. Though not bankrupt, customer visits dwindled, and the store, once bustling and handling high-end confectionaries, now echoed emptily. They shifted to selling cheaper sweets in bulk, but even that strategy wasn't hitting the mark, resulting in the closure of their second and third stores. It's hoped that the original store won't go under. Brian's brother, once the designated successor, quit the company to start his own business, refusing to take care of Jenny as suggested. He wanted distance from the family, leading to his resignation. Now, Brian's father struggles to manage the nearly bankrupt shop, and his still dependent daughter, Jenny. Why do we know so much about a family we've cut ties with? Well, after Brian left, his brother, who also distanced himself from their family, came to our wedding celebration. He too was dissatisfied with his family's ways, and celebrated Brian's departure as a joyous occasion. Since he still occasionally hears from his family, we get updates through him. The nouveau riche family, disdainful of farmers, has been steadily declining in a somewhat ironic twist. Since then, my husband and I have had 2 daughters. Despite hearing that girls are less troublesome, they are as mischievous as boys, keeping us up day and night. Born close together, they fought constantly in their younger years, and as they grew, they brought home bugs by the dozens, came back muddy, and had their share of fights with friends. These children never cease to bring me challenging news. But seeing them healthy is what matters most. And though they often fight, they make up quickly. True, they give me quite the headache with their tomboy antics. But watching their sleeping faces at night, I think to myself, I'm glad I had them. And next to me, drooling in his sleep, is my husband, looking adorable to me. Love is truly blind, huh? Soon, our family will grow by one more, aiming for a big family, you know?